Hi, this is Jen Ellison, and this is my paper on coding in the classroom. First of all, I wanted to give you some background on my research project, and some of the things I looked at was the growth of STEAM or STEM in the classroom: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. As a teacher of technology, I had noticed that there's just been a trend, or there's growing popularity with the concept of including teaching computer programming in the classroom with activities like Hour of Code. If you go to the Hour of Code website, they will tell you that 10% of the students in the world population have participated in Hour of Code. So obviously coding is something that's trending right now. Khan Academy, which their mission statement says that they want to provide world-class education for all, and they have an entire section on computer programming. So obviously they consider computer programming to be part of a world-class education. And then I was also looking at the Common Core state standards, the emphasis on critical thinking in all areas, and so that sort of led me to my research question, which is what impact does coding instruction, and specifically I looked at the language of HTML and CSS, so what impact would that have on 5th grade students' critical thinking skills? And so my methods were pretty standard. I did a pre-test with a survey, and the survey that I gave my students basically just asked about what kind of technology they have outside and inside school and what sort of things they'd already been exposed to. And then the pre-test was a series of 4 math questions that were 2-step word problems. And then after they had taken the pre-test and done the survey, we completed as a class 15 some of my students did more, but 15 lessons at Khan Academy on the beginning introduction to HTML, CSS coding. And then after a week of studying that, we did a post-test, which was exactly the same test as the pre-test for exact same 2-step word problems. And then I also gave them another survey. This time it was more about their thoughts and their reflections on coding in general. So this is the pre-test and also the post-test. So you can see here that students not only have to figure out what numbers to use, but they have to figure out how to use them. And I also recorded a start time and finish time because I was curious how much time they would spend on it. And my results were as far as correct answers, my mean on the pre-test was 1.2 out of 4, and the mean on the post-test was 1.74, which was considered to be statistically significant. So they improved somewhat in their ability to get answers correct. One of my students said that coding's good for your brain and to challenge it. Another quote I got, which was great, was coding is something very cooler than you think, because the more you go, the more cooler and challenging it gets, and it is very good for your brain. And when my students shared their reflections with me, the word challenge and thinking came up a lot in their responses. That was some of the words that came up the most. I also looked at the time they spent, and on the pre-test, the average time spent taking the test was 7.2 minutes, and the average time spent on the post-test was 10.37 minutes. So obviously they spent more time. There was a bigger growth there than I saw with the just the correct answers. So they spent more time. And the implications of that are obviously that coding does seem to have some impact on the critical thinking skills of students. And I think for next steps or for the future, I think it'd be really interesting to look at, this was a short-term study with just 23 students. It was not a demographically diverse population because our school is not demographically diverse. So it'd be interesting to see this same project repeated in a more demographically diverse group of students, but also in a more socioeconomically diverse group. My students are at a Title I school, 85% of our students live in poverty, so their exposure to technology tends to be only at school. So I think it would be interesting to see students who already had some exposure and also had access to technology at home. And I also think that it would be interesting to see the implications of teaching coding languages long term. For example, I teach students 2nd through 6th grade. It'd be interesting to follow students who begin an introduction to coding in like 3rd grade all the way through 6th grade, and to also see what impact those skills would have in other areas, not just in math, which is what I basically looked at in this study, but to see how it impacted students in art, PE, just all across the board, to see what sort of overall impact coding has. So there's a lot. I think the biggest implication of this project is that more research needs to be done, especially considering the big push and the growth of coding in general. I think it's definitely something we need to study to see what impact it has on students' ability to think critically and solve problems. Thank you.